Hi, this is DYR and this is my individual video reflection. We've been assigned this project as part of our group counseling course. The assignment asks us to reflect on the experience of having completed the major course projects of the individual group comparisons and the group manual. My individual group comparisons project dealt with the topic of grief. One video addressed grief overall, and the second video addressed specifically the grief over having lost a pet. My group manual dealt with the topic of social skills development for children and teens with autistic spectrum disorder. I will refer to autistic spectrum disorder as ASD throughout my video. My video will reflect specifically on the concepts of interesting discoveries, challenges, things I might have done differently, and important learning and how I'll use that learning in the future, all as related to the completion of these two major course projects. When you talk about grieving, there are many different types of losses that you can experience that can cause you to grieve. There can be economic losses, such as losing an investment or losing your job. There can be material losses, such as your house burns down and you lose it, or maybe you are burglarized and material items are taken from you. There can be relationship losses. A relationship ends. This could be with a friend or family member or an intimate partner. And then, of course, there is the loss of a loved one via death. This could be whether it's human in your life, or it could be a pet, or really any living entity. These are all different types of losses that can cause people to grieve. And an interesting discovery was that despite the different types of losses that I observed in the videos, the actual process of grieving was quite similar, whether someone had lost a loved one to death, or perhaps they lost their job. There was this sense of the same types of emotions: shock, denial, anger, bargaining, and the hope to eventually move toward acceptance. So this, I saw, was very similar across the different members despite the different types of losses. That was an interesting discovery to me. Likewise, and also interesting, was that the group leaders, despite the different types of losses, really employed a lot of the same strategies, and they were effective across the different types of losses. I observed group leaders using strategies such as making rounds, giving each member the opportunity to vent and express themselves, linking, often pointing out to members some of these similarities in how they were experiencing their losses and grieving, and self-disclosure, which I saw a lot of in both videos. So that was interesting. To summarize that, despite the different types of losses, I observed that for the members, the process of grieving was similar across those different types of losses. And I also observed that the group leaders were able to use the same types of strategies effectively across different types of losses. Those were interesting discoveries. I think there are two main items that come up for me when I think of the challenges that I had in completing these major course projects. For the individual group comparisons, it was much more difficult than I had anticipated to actually identify the theoretical approaches and the leadership styles. I think that might have been because they were probably using different aspects of the leadership styles, or exhibiting different aspects of the leadership styles, and probably have different elements of the different theoretical approaches. So I ultimately decided to identify what appeared to me to be the dominant theoretical approach and leadership style. But it was definitely a difficult task. For the group manual, not as difficult as what I just described, but a little bit of challenge was in identifying the appropriate evaluation method for the progress of my members. Both of these challenges also represent what I might have done differently, or what I might do differently if I were doing it, which I think for the group comparisons project, I think instead of just describing what seemed to be the dominant theoretical approach and leadership style, I might have described all of the different elements that I observed, and kind of addressed the fact that they probably actually did have more integrated approaches than I described. So I would have done that differently. For the group manual, I was comfortable because I actually had established instruments to use for evaluation. But I might have, if I were doing it over, I might add to that some additional methods for assessment, or at least link more the idea of keeping notes and updating the individual plans that the members all have. That would be something, those two things are both the challenges and what I might have done differently. I think that clearly the most important learning for me in completing these major projects was first just the chance to observe group sessions in process, just very valuable exposure to how members interact, how group leaders apply strategies, and really how they manage the entire interaction. Also, the chance to conceive and actually draft the group manual. Again, very valuable practical exposure to the types of considerations you have to make, how you have to conceive the entire format. Just very, very valuable learning. Both of which I will definitely use in the future. Extracting and refining and fine-tuning what I've observed and applying it when my time comes, each for practicum and internships, and when I'm actually practicing. On a personal level, I'd like to say I also learned, I think, the group manual project was very fluid. I was very at home with researching, synthesizing data, and writing the manual. The group comparisons project, very useful, and I feel I did it successfully, but that took a little bit more work for me. I have to fine-tune my ability to really observe and pinpoint strategies and theories and how it all gets put together to conduct an actual session. Not surprising for me that I need more work in that area at this stage of my education, but nonetheless, completing these projects highlighted that for me. And that concludes my individual video reflection. Just want to thank my classmates and instructor for great discussions and interaction, and wishing everyone the very best. Thanks.